our Christ I Am Disciple on What You Need channel. And as you can see, we're talking about basically the end stages of the empire, the Western Empire, and also, several other American Empire, Israel, etc. I'm going to start off first by saying, all praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. I don't look to curse and swear in this stream. I'm just going to get to the points. Let me start off with this. I think this is great. I want you guys to listen.
Rob you blind and you thank them. They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs only ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
He's 100% right. The American public has been pawns in the hands of very crooked politicians. I'm going to tell you guys something, and you'll learn just how anybody can be a politician and anybody can run a country. Who do you really think runs a country? I'm going to tell you who runs the country. People like you. That's right. People like you. The country's intelligence is run by people like you. The military, run by people like you. Commerce, run by people like you. You elect governments into leadership roles. You purchase the products that drive the economy and let businesses make billions. I don't think you understand, and I've been saying this now for a year. You matter, and collectively, you are the ones that run this country. You are the people who have specialized labor. You are the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, the police, the military, the intelligence gatherers. The intelligence agency is made up of people like you. If tomorrow Donald Trump and all the politicians in Congress were to somehow disappear off the scene, not be found, do you think the country would stop running? The country would continue to run. Why? Because the country runs on people like you making it run. The politicians take advice from people like you, the lawyers that advise the politicians, the intelligence people who advise the politicians. They're people like you. You see, you have to understand, we don't need politicians. What we need is people like you to do the jobs in society as you're doing, and sometimes to give even more effort and get paid better. If people like you were to be in government, we'd have a government that works because those people would understand and have lived the lives that we live. There'd be normal, hardworking, middle class people who have not made billions and understand that you need to share the wealth. Instead of fueling wars, unnecessary wars, instead of listening to foreign states like Israel dictate what happens and get bribed, people like you and me wouldn't be bribed. They would try to kill out people like you and me, but because they are so small and we're such huge numbers, it really wouldn't change anything. It's time, as this Chinese guy says, that you have a revolution. Your revolution is very simple. People like you band together against the elite. There's no need for a federal government. And clearly, they're corrupting the laws that are in the country. To uphold the Constitution, the federal government must go, and all of its ridiculous agencies that accompany it. The charade, and if the Supreme Court can't make proper judgments anymore because it's corrupted, you get rid of the centralized Supreme Court and just let the courts do what they do, state by state. If the people in the state are corrupted, then we bypass them and we go to the people. We get a referendum from the people and then unite together and say we do not recognize this corrupt Congress. In other words, your revolution starts by you taking into control the things you already are in control of, the skills you already have, the activities you already do. You are the people with the knowledge, the know-how, the brain, the brawn, the lives that they sacrifice overseas. You do it. They don't do it. These politicians sit in Congress. They may take a tour here or a tour there, but they're usually in Congress and in the central federal government, far removed from you, playing politics, telling lies and seeing if you'll eat it up. It's time you take a stand. China is kicking the U.S.'s ass as we speak. Nothing the U.S. has done can even compare to what China is doing. And the problem with it is the United States is isolating itself from the world. The more it imposes tariffs and it thinks that it can use its military all around the world to obstruct trade routes of China, is the more the Chinese is going to succeed, because you may be able to block ships that carry multiple goods to different parts of the world, but you cannot stop or block transactions done online. Online is not controlled to that extent. As such, China makes a lot of sales online and then does their deliveries. Several companies. Besides that, the United States needs vital minerals to facilitate their electronics. And again, China supplies those things. The US wants to be barbaric and try to do an invasion against China, but China is not playing checkers. China is not flexing with brawn. China's playing chess, 3D chess, 4D chess, where Chinese is way ahead of the Americans. Their planning was way more coordinated. So while America is desperate and wants to start a war with China, like a physical war, they're way behind the curve, about 40 years behind. Their technology is behind the curve. The Chinese technology is much more advanced. And so when I heard the head of CARICOM giving in to the United States, I said, she doesn't represent me, the Prime Minister of Barbados. As much as I like her gutsy talk, her actions don't speak with her words. She says a lot of good things, but then she's talking about giving in to the United States. Why would you do something stupid like that? You could get tourism from China. You could get tourism from other parts of the world. The United States is not the be all and end all of everything. You can get peanut butter, all the products you get from the United States, you can get elsewhere. From Latin America, you can get oil from Latin America. You can get tourism, not just from Latin America, but from Europe, which is a major sustainer of tourism. In other words, Europe and the rest of the world, if the United States is giving them tariffs and blocking you, including India, you can always turn to China. Did you know? Well, let me show you. Just 1 second, please. I will find it. So China responds to Trump's 145% tariff with 125% tariff on all U.S. imported goods. You have to understand. Let me see if I can find it. I think this is it here. Listen to this.
Within this time, they probably should have took this app away when they had the chance, because the Chinese manufacturers just hit them folks with the Uno reverse. And right now, the Chinese manufacturers are the best content on TikTok. They said, oh, tariffs, you say. Oh, okay. American people, y'all say y'all like New Balance, Adidas, Nike. Bet. Oh, yeah. The manufacturer is such and such, located at such and such in Guangzhou. They do shipping within this time, and here are the products. I've seen the manufacturers for every brand anybody could possibly think of, from shoes and apparel to beauty products. One of the Chinese manufacturers said, oh yeah, you know how you pay such and such $100 for Chanel beauty product? Well, we only make them for $10. Listen, I don't know how this tariff thing is going to play out, but the way that the Chinese manufacturers are playing their hand, absolutely well done. 10s across the board. I told y'all, in the years that I lived in China, I got everything under the sun because everything is pretty much made there. So to see people learning about the actual quality that's in China, because not everything is made cheaply, and learning about websites like Taobao, y'all better get to getting while the getting is good. They probably should have took this app away.
Okay, this is it here. This is what she's talking about. Listen.
As made in Italy or made in France, you know, those sophisticated European. Some say as long as there's a tag saying made in China, the bag can never be luxury. However, in fact, more than 80% of the luxury bags in the world are made in China. But those luxury brands just won't acknowledge that. They take almost finished bags from China factories back to their own factories and just do the repackaging and logo installing, something like that. That way, the bags will appear at their boutiques as made in Italy or made in France. You know, those sophisticated European countries, which make you feel mysterious, royal, and thus luxury. Now, close your eyes. Let's just do a little, very easy experiment in your head, okay? Imagine that you have an Hermes bag, and suddenly the label on it changed from made in France into made in China, while everything else, like leathers, zippers, and hardware, remain the same. Do you suddenly feel that your bag is not as luxury as before? If you do, that means you have been misled and poisoned by the market campaign of those luxury brands for too long. Welcome to the real world. Now you see, those bags are made in China by our intelligent and diligent Chinese artisans. Let's not be poisoned and misled by the market campaign any longer and be a real person. Buy a bag from us, from our factory in China. See the real world for yourself.
Because the countries that make these brands, they outsource their factories and labor to Chinese. So it's in fact true that the Chinese have manufacturing capital of the world. There's a site called Alibaba.com where you can get everything from literally iPhones, which are made in China, by the way, And, you know, computers, desktops, tablets, the whole nine, you can get them from China. And they're much cheaper. And then you can wholesale them into your country, I know. And there are many sites like Alibaba.com which do this. And you're actually interfacing with Chinese manufacturers, and you can literally make your own brands if you want. Now, why that's so important is because the United States has no manufacturing really going on in it. People talk about, you know, they have they have you know, tech companies, and they also leverage you know, like they leverage loans because of their money. But to be honest with you, America ain't got nothing. It ain't got jack shit. And the dollar's being replaced as we speak every day with other currencies, which means they don't really have a major currency of leverage. Which is why they're so desperate to try to stop China by physical means, that is, true war. The stupid thing about that is they think they can reset everything after destroying China or whatever they think they're doing. The problem is China is also militarily very powerful, has nuclear weapons, etc. And though the Chinese don't use these weapons and drones and so much other nanotech and high-tech stuff, it doesn't mean that if a war is to happen between the United States and China, first of all, Singapore sides with China because Singapore knows what's the goods are. If the United States wages a physical war with China, I am going to guarantee you that the Chinese are smart enough not to destroy mainland China. They're going to flip the script, and they're going to take the war to the United States on United States soil. So if the United States is so stupid to want to wage a nuclear war against China in the Indo-Asian Pacific, I'm going to guarantee you this. The Chinese are no fools. And while they are not engaged in war, first of all, if the United States even harms China in any way, shape, or form, we're going to have World War III because Russia is going to jump into it. And the major reason is because China is like a major market that the Russians sell their products to. If anything was to happen to India, you would see Russia rushing in as well, because India and China do business with Russia. So while India depends more on the American markets, the Chinese have divested from America a long time ago. Their major market is the Indo-Asian Pacific islands and countries. The Chinese not only sells to them and Singapore, but they also sell to the world, as you probably do know, especially their electric cars and their electric stuff, bikes and so on. What I'm telling you is that would be a fatal error that will destroy the United States permanently. It's already on the destruct mode. Donald Trump is accelerating the destruction of the United States faster than probably any other president has done. He thinks he's trying to maintain order, but I mean, the most incompetent government I've seen so far. They're dangerous because, you know, they're breaking the Constitution, they're breaking laws. The Supreme Court is upholding them because partisan people are there. But I mean, they're only doing one thing. They're just further accelerating and imploding the American empire. It's going down in a bunch of flames right now. So, of course, a desperate guy like Trump, he would probably try to wage war, as he is waging war right now against Palestine. The problem with that is the Palestinians are notoriously difficult to kill. And on top of that, Hamas, which is still there, is not going anywhere. You know, if you were to kill out most of the citizens in Palestine, you'd still have Hamas to deal with. So it's just a no-win situation for the Israelis. Fighting a war that's going to drag on for years and years and years, just like the PLO thing. Then probably the Palestinians started an intifada and they start suicide bombing places in Israel and so on. It just does not work. Like, Israel's getting territory, but the territory they gained in Syria, they cannot maintain that territory. They cannot defend that territory indefinitely. They're still at risk and they're still dangerous. They can't build settlements in there. They haven't even been able to move the Israeli people who were moved from the north by Hezbollah. They're not even able to move them back into their villages. The Israelis are under tremendous attack. And not only that, a lot of Israelis now are in panic mode because once they hear those sirens up above, they start to go into panic mode. And nobody wants to stay in a country where it's unsafe, which is basically Israel is very unsafe right now. Even though they're carrying out a genocide next door in Palestine, they're very unsafe. The Houthis have been launching missile after missile after missile into Israel, and terrorizing the Ben Gurion airport. And the Ben Gurion airport has not been able to be clamped down. With all the bombing the United States is doing, in Yemen right now, they can't stop them from intercepting ships and taking down ships, and they can't stop them from bombing Israel. The Houthis have just been relentlessly bombing the shit out of Israel and bombing the shit out of any ship that comes through there that's going to Israel or anything related to Israel. So what I'm saying is you have this supposedly great American empire that backs Israel, and Israel can't even cleanse the Gaza Strip of Hamas. And they're calling everybody Hamas so that they can say that they achieved some sort of accomplishment. I'm sure they haven't even destroyed what the number that they claim they destroyed of Hamas people. The reason why they can't destroy Hamas is because, one, Hamas is not above ground most of the time. It's kind of below ground. And then secondly, besides Hamas having hostages, Hamas is a guerrilla organization. These freedom fighters fight in a guerrilla formation or in guerrilla methods. So even though they don't really fight amongst the public, they will fight guerrilla warfare and they will beat your ass because you're not going to beat them. They're going to be around. You're not going to get to destroy them. They're going to be around. And Netanyahu tried to use this as a way to try and push most of the Palestinians out of Palestine. The problem with that is, even if you think you're pushing the Palestinians out of Palestine, you have to push Hamas out of Palestine. Otherwise, there'll be a thorn in your side, and you won't be able to build settlements and stay there. The fact that there's a resistance fighting against the Israeli occupation is beautiful. And this is the problem that they have with Gaza. Hamas is embedded in there, and they can't get rid of Hamas. So no matter what they do, no matter how much, the United States and Great Britain and Germany and France help them, that's not a winnable situation. Now, I'm not saying that if you make a Palestinian state, all is going to be kumbaya and safe. No, I think Israel will still attack Palestine. As they do Lebanon, as they did Syria. I just believe that the Palestinians are very resilient, and on top of that, they're not budging. They're holding their ground, which is very good. Now, with respect to something else I wanted to talk to you guys about. I've said this, and I'm going to say it one more time. The United States of America is not a world superpower anymore. They're only so in name. They couldn't help Europe when Europe needed help. They're bankrupting Europe right now because they're saying that we're not going to pay off all your debts. We're going to withdraw. You have to pay your own way. And they're imploding internally following Israeli propaganda. And they're attacking their own people who are contributing to them in terms of research and otherwise. And they're contravening against free speech and saying, if you come into our country now, you can't say dilly squat. You just be quiet and do your job. That's the kind of racist nonsense that's going on there. And quite frankly, I'm so happy I'm not there. It was a time when I wanted to be in the United States. But now I'm not looking forward to that. Oh, hell no. No. They're behaving really retarded right now over there. So, couple other things. This is another manufacturer exposing high top shoes that the Chinese actually make for these companies. And now they're selling them dirt poor, dirt cheap. APAC Tracker says it's now Israel First Amendment. I guess so. Got the flag upside down. Congress has investigated every post-World War II attack on a U.S. Navy ship except for the attack on the USS Liberty. Attacks on the U.S. Pueblo, the U.S. Stark, U.S. Cole, as well as the 1983 bombings of the Marine barracks and American embassy in Beirut have all been investigated by Congress. The attack on the USS Liberty has not been. To date, no member of Congress has ever attended the annual memorial service honoring our fallen shipmates that held the USS Liberty mass grave number 1817, section 34 in Arlington National Cemetery. Normally, memorial services honoring our fallen heroes draw members of Congress like flies. Not so, a memorial service honoring these fallen on the USS Liberty. The U.S. government has also never failed to investigate allegations from American military units that they are victims of war crimes, except for the war crimes committed by the IDF during the attack on the USS Liberty. Leave the War Crimes Report we filed with the Department of Defense on June 8, 2005, a report of war crimes committed against U.S. military personnel, June 8, 1967. We filed an FOIA request to get a copy of the thorough investigation the DoD has not yet conducted, despite its mandate to conduct per the DoD Law of War Manual. So, once again, not backing up their veterans. Very important to understand what's going on there. Kevin Seal exposed Bernie Sanders. Israel had a right to defend Bernie Sanders at today's rally, and we're supposed to ignore that when a genocide is going on? It would be strange if every Israeli politician posted, "I stand with America." They don't, because they aren't owned by America. A lot of people are seeing through the bullshit now. Here's one more for the road. See if I can find it. There's some stuff on chemtrails here. Oh yes, 100,000 Israelis are too embarrassed to kill children. Don't stop shaming them. It's working. The Israeli army is facing its biggest refusal crisis in decades. Over 100,000 Israelis have reportedly stopped showing up for reserve duty. While their reasons differ, the scale demonstrates the war's waning legitimacy. And somewhere here is an Israeli who is speaking out against the war and says he's not going to go serve in it. Let me see if I can find it. But first, here is this.
United States, you'll lose 15% of your... Really said they don't give a fuck. We don't care. During an interview with Victor Gao, who is a lawyer and businessman, but also the vice president of the Center for China and Globalization, a reporter told him, if you lose the United States, you'll lose 15% of your business. And this was his response.
And China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived.
That puts some perspective on shit, doesn't it? See, I've talked about this before, how when I joined the Army and started traveling the world, I learned just how young America was. I got a degree in Korean studies, and learning its 5,000-year history made me realize just how adolescent my country is. So to say we made it 5,000 years without you is a strong-ass statement. He also had this to say.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end, because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out from the China market, we might get it. If the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
You see, even though the press secretary says things like, you haven't read The Art of the Deal, have you? If Donald Trump thinks he's doing some sneaky business stuff or trying to make power moves with these tariffs, he's not. The entire world knows what the fuck he's doing, and nobody's playing his game. In fact, amidst this tariff war with China, he's already exempted electronics and phones and other things which are primary imports from China. Why? Because he knows that the American consumer consumer is about to get bashed across the head with his bullshit, childish tariff war with China. And as for the tariffs on all the other countries, he's already paused them, which was entirely a method of market manipulation. And again, very transparent. Everybody knows what the fuck he's up to. MAGA's convinced that this guy is some savvy business dude playing 4D chess. He's literally making transparent decisions and everybody's calling him on his bluff. And every other country standing their ground. Meanwhile, America's losing every fucking time. And then when you add that with the fact that he's blatantly ignoring the orders of federal judges, not only are we in the middle of a financial crisis, we are also amidst a grave constitutional crisis. China.
Yep.
We want justice, you say how? Free Mahmoud right now! We want justice, you say how? Free Mahmoud right now! When I say hands off, you say our students. Hands off! Hands off! Hands off! Hands off!
This is Bangladesh, man. Supporting Gaza.
That kind of inequality, that kind of oppression, that kind of apartheid, really. My connection to Palestine came through Palestinians and hearing their stories, and then watching, this asymmetrical warfare being acted upon them. There's no reason that an ally of America should not be held to the same standards that we would any other nation in the world, especially an ally. And what I see there is wrong.
مرحبا، رسالتي إلى العالم أجمع. نحن نباد ونقتل، الأطفال تموت، نزوح كل يوم جديد. انقذونا قبل فوات الأوان.
Superman to be dark and brooding and to take revenge on people that are weaker than him because, they were bullies. So he goes out and he destroys the guy's livelihood. They think that's great.
Yeah, we don't need that version of Superman. We tried Hyperion in the DC universe. It didn't work out.
It's funny that Zack Snyder does so much Christ imagery with Superman in Man of Steel, and yet there's none of the turn the other cheek kind of quality that would be part of a Christ-like portrayal.
I don't think there's anything funny about Man of Steel.
And obviously, Zack Snyder doesn't understand the character of Superman. And obviously, Zack Snyder doesn't understand the character of Superman. And obviously, Zack Snyder doesn't understand the character of Superman.
Running away from pain like the kids from Palestine. What's broken?
Palestinian friend of mine, Hamza, has just posted something on his timeline that just stopped me in my tracks, and I'm going to read it for you word for word. If the Palestinian people are erased, massacred, displaced from their ancestral land, and the good people of the world allow it, then perhaps we were simply too good, too pure for this world. Enjoy the world you've built, one where even the righteous watch in silence, uncertain, unable to save a people who wanted nothing more than to live on their land. But when you remember us, remember a people of dignity who refused to bow to power, who never lost their humanity, even as a world abandoned them.
There's no such thing as a lesser evil when both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris support Israel's genocide. Kamala is not a girl boss. She's not a good person. She's another genocidal Zionist the same as the rest of these politicians. In May 2019, Kamala Harris signed a letter to the International Criminal Court. And do you want to know why? Because she was against their investigation of Israel's crimes. She called it dangerous. And do you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of this spring when a group of Republicans wrote a similar letter to the International Criminal Court telling them they were against their investigation, also calling it dangerous and threatening the prosecutor and their family. These guys were funded with millions of dollars from AIPAC. Kamala, she doesn't need any of that. She supports the genocide without having to be funded by the pro-Israel lobby. That's a true Zionist at heart. Kamala even gave a speech at one of AIPAC's policy conferences. In March 2019, she said, "We will always stand with Israel and support its right to defend itself." She gave a similar speech in June 2021 to the Jewish Democratic Council of America. In fall 2021, Kamala Harris visited George Mason University, where she took questions from some students. This ended up getting her in a lot of trouble because one of the students asked her why she could say she values the voice of the people when, despite protests, her administration had just approved more weapons for Israel, contributing to the ethnic genocide, is what the student said. Not wanting to appear bad, Kamala deflected the question, talking about how she did think that the voice of the people was important, but said nothing about Palestine or corrected or said anything about what the student had actually asked her. This put her in some hot water, and immediately afterwards, she went into cleanup mode. Her and her team reached out to pro-Israel groups across the United States and reaffirmed her support for Israel. Kamala even spoke with the CEO of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, who published this tweet about the call that he had with her. He said, "Just spoke with VP office. Glad to hear her confirm she is proud of her record supporting Israel and knows claims it is committing ethnic genocide is patently false. Looking forward to a clearing of the record so there's no ambiguity that what that student said was hateful/wrong. Kamala's spokesperson even made a statement for her saying the vice president strongly disagrees with the student's characterization of Israel. In May 2020, Kamala wrote an op-ed for The Forward where she said things like, "Our relationship with Israel is ironclad and unshakable. It is rooted in shared values, mutual security interests, and a deep commitment to democracy and human rights." Does Kamala Harris really believe that Israel has a deep commitment to human rights? I don't think so. And pretending like it's true is only serving as cover for the genocide. I'm telling you, Kamala Harris is no different than these Republicans and these AIPAC Democrats. She's always supported the genocide. She's never cared about the Palestinians. And all her pretty words mean nothing. They are just empty platitudes without any real action behind them. As Palestinians are slaughtered, voting for the less evil genocidal Zionist still means you're voting for a genocidal Zionist. And I'm sick of people pretending like she's a good person. She's not. That's delusional. Unless something changes, no arms embargo on Israel, no vote for Kamala Harris. I'm not doing it. And you should do that too, because we need to be done supporting.
We want justice, you say.
And by encouraging, and financially encourage.
That came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of this entire war came from. It did not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011. We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists, including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years. The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011, which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria after being armed by the United States. The reason I want to be clear about this is that we will not have peace in this region until we have public diplomacy that is based on real diplomacy, not on CIA operations. And we will not have peace until Israel stops its militarization of the entire Middle East. Because the Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001, when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the U.S. war with Iran, which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day. So the Syrian war is part of a regional tragedy. We have tragedy in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, South Sudan, and Libya that I put at the hands of the United States government and its ally Israel, because none of these wars had to happen. These were all wars of choice. They were all wars that came from the idea of regime change operations, that the United States would determine which regimes operate in which countries. We'll never have peace in this region if outside imperial powers like the United States are dictating the terms to this region. The only way to have peace in this region is if this region is determining its own future, not outside powers. And Israel could never do these wars on its own. These are American wars. America provides the financing, it provides the military backup, it provides the naval support, it provides the intelligence operations, it provides the munitions. Israel couldn't fight for 1 day without the United States backing. Israel could not be committing a genocide in Gaza without the United States' full operational complicity. I don't mean political complicity, I mean direct, daily operational complicity. This has to end. This region has been divided for 100 years, first by the British Empire and then by the American Empire. And this is going on until today. We have a genocide going on right next door. Till today, till this morning. People being wantonly killed, brazenly killed, because the United States is providing the means for this. So this is what's happening in Syria. Is the U.S. on the fence? Hardly. It's the major actor. I know, by the way, I know firsthand that in 2012, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed former Secretary General Kofi Annan as special envoy to reach a peace in Syria. I loved Kofi Annan. I love Ban Ki-moon. I worked for both of them. Kofi Annan arranged a peace in 2012. He arranged a peace in Syria. You know why it didn't happen? Because all the parties agreed to peace except one. Literally one. That was the United States of America. The United States of America said there will be no peace unless Bashar al-Assad goes the first day. The other parties said, no, you can't just determine that. Maybe there'll be a process. Maybe there'll be elections agreed. Maybe there'll be a 2-year process, a 3-year process. The United States said, no, Assad must go the first day of any agreement or we block it. And so Kofi Annan stepped down from his position after having negotiated a peace arrangement. And we have had 500,000 people dead since then. We should not allow this kind of criminality to be normal. This region has been at war nonstop for 30 years. Actually, I would say for at least 57 years since the Six-Day War, because there has been no honest accounting of international law, no honest diplomacy. It's been militarization all the way through. And we could have peace immediately in this region. All that is required, in my view, is the United States change its veto of Palestine as the 194th UN member state, because on that basis, all the region would normalize relations and the wars all across this region would stop. But Israel has had control over U.S. policy. And it says no. It wants greater Israel. It wants Israel in Syria. It wants Israel in Lebanon. It wants Israel in the West Bank. It wants Israel in East Jerusalem. It wants Israel in Gaza. And until that stops, we're not going to have peace. So is the U.S. on the fence? Of course not. It's the major protagonist of this whole war and has been for the last 14 years.
Hi all, I'm Vanya. You may have seen me disrupt Bill Gates, Satya Nadella, and Steve Ballmer at Microsoft's 50th anniversary event. I'm an organizer with the No Azure for Apartheid campaign, demanding an end to Microsoft's complicity in Israel's apartheid and genocide in Gaza. On April 4th, our campaign organized a coordinated protest to demand that Microsoft leadership divest from Israel and stop selling lethal weapons. On April 7th, both Ibtihal and I were fired in retaliation. This is not the first time Microsoft has retaliated against its workers for speaking up. We've seen our members silenced, doxxed, intimidated, sanctioned by HR, and removed from premises. In October 2024, Microsoft also fired two of our members, Abdul Mohammed and Hassan Nasser, for organizing a campus lunchtime vigil. Many have been asking how you can support, so we have a few requests. You can support our campaign by signing our petitions for both workers and the public at noazureforapartheid.com. If you're a Microsoft worker, join our campaign and organize with us at noah.cc/join. Though Ibtihal and I have been the public faces of these disruptions, this was a coordinated and planned protest. It wouldn't have happened without the countless names and hands behind it. And if you join our campaign, you can be part of the growing movement too. Our second request is to boycott Microsoft. Continue to pressure Microsoft and boycott all products possible until our demands are met. If nothing else, prioritize the BDS targets: Microsoft Gaming, Surface devices, and Copilot. As organizers, we're grounded in the hope of witnessing a free and liberated Palestine within our lifetime. Since last Friday alone, Israel has been exposed for murdering and burying emergency responders. Not a single drop of aid has entered Gaza in over 30 days. And journalists in the southern Gaza Strip have been bombed and burned alive by an Israeli airstrike. Microsoft powers this genocide. While Microsoft tried to celebrate 50 years of prioritizing profit over human lives, we made it clear we will not write code that kills. The world knows now that Mustafa, Bill Gates, Satya, and Steve Ballmer, and the rest of Microsoft executives are war criminals and war profiteers. We cannot look away and we cannot be silent. Everyone has the right to live in safety, dignity, and comfort. If our actions and labor aren't working towards that value, we're just as hypocritical as Microsoft and its CEOs. In the words of Gazan journalist Abu Bakr Abed, this cause is worth sacrificing everything for. Save your humanity.
This entire war came.
Okay, so I gave you guys like a lot of information there, and I want to tell you I'm very proud of you guys. Again, civil disobedience is important when we have bad law, and again, just so for the record, you guys need to stand up and flex your muscles and show these stupid ass, dumb ass politicians that one, they're in a different era, and two, that you run things, not them. So before I move on, and that goes for every government worldwide. You guys call the shots. You guys are what keep a nation running. It's not that. Now, let me show you one more thing, if I can find it. Even Anthony Bourdain. Today, nearly everything is made in China except for the courage. It's made in Palestine. Even he's realizing what's going on. All right, I mean, restore the Snyderverse. What do you want to know? Well, let me tell you. We're not that far away from the Snyderverse being restored. I'm going to tell you guys that again. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, Superman will flop. But more importantly than that, why this will happen is because you guys kept keeping Restore the Snyderverse in the zeitgeist. You kept keeping it relevant. And whenever you see a pushback, whenever you see somebody coming out of their way to talk about, move on and all this nonsense, it's because they feel not just offended by what you're doing, but they also feel threatened by what you're doing. If you're not a threat, they're not going to bother you. And you clearly are a threat. And most of the so-called Twitter accounts that are actually challenging you are really multiple accounts from the same person. So there are a lot of fake accounts out there responding. And they all respond similarly because they're multiple accounts from one person. So bear that in mind. You are the majority of DC fans. And may your voice of silence be felt on July 11th. This is to send a clear signal to them that you are the one in charge. As the great Greg Silverman would say, the audience is the boss. And so apparently these studios don't know, or they're naive to the fact that you're the boss. Show them. Don't show up for that movie. Instead, watch Man of Steel come July 11th. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.